Okay, so you know that feeling. When you launch something you were, like, really excited about, only to see it.
Will barely get used.
Oh, yeah. It's a tough pill to swallow, definitely.
And it's something a lot of us, who are building things have experienced. So for you, the learner who wants to get smart on important frameworks quickly without getting lost in jargon, we're doing a deep dive today.
Hmm.
We're looking into something called GEST. Think of it as a practical roadmap.
Right. For making sure the products and features we develop actually
Yeah.
land, deliver real value.
Exactly. Our mission here is pretty simple. Understand how GEST can help us make evidence-backed decisions and maybe ditch some of the guesswork that leads to those features nobody uses.
And what's really interesting about GS, I think, is how it challenges that instinct we have to just build what we think is a good idea.
Right.
Instead, it puts a really strong emphasis on validating those ideas,
Mm.
using evidence at every single stage.
So constantly checking in.
Yeah, constantly asking, okay, how do we know this will work rather than just assuming it will?
Mm.
Okay, makes sense. So let's get into the nuts and bolts of it. GEST, starting with the first step.
Yeah.
G for goal.
Right. Go.
Now, this isn't just about setting any goal. The framework really emphasizes having what's called a SMART goal.
Mm.
Specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound.
The classic SMART criteria.
But I think what's particularly insightful here, at least for me, is the focus on being outcome-oriented rather than just like output-driven.
That's such a critical distinction.
Yeah, it's not enough to just say, hey, we built a new login flow.
Yeah.
The real question is, okay, did that new login flow actually reduce user drop-off? That's the outcome.
Absolutely, because when you anchor your goals to those desired outcomes, it fosters a much more innovative environment, actually.
How so?
Well, teams aren't just locked into one specific solution right from the start. They're kind of empowered to explore different ways to get to that outcome.
Okay.
And if their first idea, their initial approach doesn't quite hit the mark, the underlying goal is still there, so it prompts them to, try other things.
And I guess to make sure everyone in the whole organization is pulling in the same direction, we're talking about leadership setting objectives and key results, right? OKRs.
Exactly. OKRs define those high-level targets and, crucially, how you're going to measure progress towards them.
And from there, you get this idea of a North Star metric.
Yeah, the North Star metric. That's like the single most important metric that really captures long-term success for the business. It's the ultimate destination everyone's aiming for.
So if we zoom out, the North Star gives you that big strategic focus.
It does, but, to make it less abstract, more actionable for the individual teams doing the work, GIC uses this idea of a metric tree.
A metric tree.
Yeah, it basically just breaks down that big overarching North Star metric into smaller, more specific metrics, things that teams can actually influence directly.
Ah, got it.
So each team can end up having its own sort of aligned North Star metric,
Yeah.
one that feeds directly into the company's bigger OKRs. It creates this really clear line of sight, from the day-to-day stuff to the overall strategy.
Right, right. So instead of a roadmap item that just says, I don't know, develop in-app messaging, which is purely an output, something we build, a G-style goal would be framed more like increase user engagement measured by weekly active users by 15% in Q3, something like that.
Exactly. You see the difference straight away. One's about the feature, the other's about the impact you want that feature or maybe some other feature to have.
It really makes you think, doesn't it? How often we just get caught up in delivering features without really truly considering the impact on our key goals.
Totally. And by flipping that, starting with the outcome you want, you just set yourself up for, well, much more meaningful progress.
Okay, so we've got our clear outcome-focused goals defined. That's the G. What's the next piece?
The next piece is ideas.
Ideas. Okay.
Yeah.
And what's interesting here, I thought, is that G's really encourages ideas to come from, well, everywhere.
Yeah, absolutely. Engineering design, marketing, sales, customer support, you name it.
The suggestion is to create like a central hub, right? A goal-level idea bank where anyone can chuck in their thoughts on how to actually achieve those goals we just set.
Yeah, and what I find really compelling about this stage is just that recognition that, great ideas aren't only found in one department or role.
Sure.
By fostering that kind of open contribution, you tap into a much wider range of perspectives, potential solutions. It's just richer.
But then you potentially get loads of ideas, right? How do you sort through them?
Ah, good question. That's exactly where the ICE framework comes in. You need a way to filter and prioritize effectively.
ICE. Okay, I remember reading about this. That's an acronym, right? Impact, confidence, and ease.
That's the one. Each idea in that bank gets evaluated and scored based on those three things.
And the final score is just multiplying them together. Impact times confidence times ease.
Yep, simple multiplication. For impact, you're asking, how much could this idea really move the needle on our North Star metric? And maybe other relevant business KPIs.
And this isn't just a wild guess.
No, ideally not. It should be informed by, any data you have, past experiences, that kind of thing. But you've got ease,
Which is about how hard it is to actually do it.
pretty much. Technical feasibility, the effort involved, something you definitely talk through with your engineering team.
Okay. Impact, ease, and confidence.
I mean, confidence, yeah. Which honestly might be the most critical bit.
Why is that?
Because it's not just about whether you think an idea is good, it's about how much evidence you actually have to back that up.
Okay. So what kind of evidence?
Could be anything, really. User research findings, maybe product usage analytics, results from previous experiments you ran. GST even suggests using something called a confidence meter.
Confidence meter, like a scale.
Yeah, basically a way to try and quantify how strong that supporting evidence is. Put a number on your confidence level.
So a high IE score isn't just about a potentially brilliant idea in isolation.
No, it's the combination. High potential impact plus high confidence based on evidence, remember that it'll actually work, plus relative ease of implementation.
Gotcha. So it helps you avoid just chasing every, shiny new idea that pops up.
Exactly. It focuses your energy on the ideas that are most likely to drive you towards your goals and have some solid evidence behind them already.
It brings a bit of objectivity, I suppose.
Precisely. To what can often be a very subjective, who shouts loudest kind of decision process. It acts as a really powerful filter.
Okay, makes sense. So we've got our goal. We've gathered and prioritized ideas using IZ. What's next?
S.
S is for steps.
Steps, right. And this is where we actually start testing those prioritized ideas out.
Yes, exactly. Through what are called build, measure, learn feedback loops.
Okay. Build, measure, learn.
The core idea here is that each loop, each step, gives you more data, more evidence.
Which you then feed back into the confidence score.
You got it. It lets you revisit that confidence meter for the idea and refine its overall ICE score. Maybe it goes up, maybe it goes down, based on what you learn.
And GIST recommends keeping these loops pretty short, right? Like a week or so? Yeah, around a week is the suggestion. The focus is on small, targeted initiatives, things that let you test specific assumptions and gather meaningful evidence quickly without betting the farm.
That emphasis on short, iterative cycles feels really important.
Oh, it is. By breaking down those bigger ideas into smaller, testable steps, you can just learn and adapt much more rapidly.
So if an assumption turns out to be wrong,
It's a relatively minor course correction, not some huge pivot months down the line. It really minimizes risk and keeps you flexible.
and these steps, they can take lots of different forms, can't they? It's not just building code.
No, absolutely not. We're talking about things like conducting user interviews, maybe running some A/B tests on different versions of a small feature.
Or like a short-lived referral program just to gauge interest.
Yeah, or even just doing usability testing on an interactive prototype before you write any code. The key is getting that real-world feedback.
And there's another framework mentioned here, after.
Ah, yes, after. It's kind of a way to structure these different step activities. Stands for assessments, fact-finding, tests, experiments, and release results.
Okay, could you give examples?
Sure. Assessments could be like expert reviews of designs or tech plans. Fact-finding might be market research or deeper user interviews. Tests could be things like smoke tests or validating prototypes.
Like seeing if the tech is even feasible.
Right. Or getting quick user reactions. Experiments are more formal, like your A/B tests, or maybe launching a minimum viable product, an MVP.
And release results.
That's analyzing the data from any small-scale releases you do, seeing how actual users interact with what you've put out there, even if it's limited.
Okay, so each of these activities is basically designed to generate data.
Exactly. Data that helps you increase your confidence in an idea, or, just as importantly, helps you realize pretty quickly that maybe an idea isn't as promising as you first thought.
It's all about that continuous learning and adapting based on what you find out.
And crucially, that learning feeds directly back into the ICE scoring. As you gather more evidence, you update your confidence score for that idea.
Which can change its priority.
Absolutely. It's a dynamic system. An idea might start lower down, but climb up as you gather positive evidence, or vice versa.
Okay, goal, ideas, steps. That brings us to the last letter, T.
T for tasks.
Tasks. This is where the actual building happens, right? Using agile methods and so on.
Yes, this is the execution phase. But here's a really key takeaway from the GIST approach.
Right.
Tasks should primarily, maybe even only, be created for those ideas that have successfully gone through that steps process.
Ah, so only for ideas that have survived the testing loops.
Exactly. Ideas that now have a sufficiently high and, importantly, revised confidence score based on the evidence you gathered in the steps phase.
That feels like a really efficient way to work.
It is. This selective approach is crucial for maximizing efficiency and, frankly, minimizing wasted effort.
Because you're focusing your precious development resources on things that have already shown some promise.
Precisely. You significantly increase the likelihood of building features that will actually resonate with your users and hit those outcome goals you set way back at the beginning. It's about being much more strategic with your time and energy.
And to keep everyone on the same page during this tasks phase, GIST recommends using a GIST board.
Yeah, a G-Sport. It's basically a visual tool. It lets everyone across different teams, different departments, see what's currently being worked on, what's coming up next.
And crucially, how it all connects back.
Exactly. How all those individual tasks connect back to the validated ideas from the steps phase and ultimately back to those overarching strategic goals from the goal phase.
So it maintains transparency and alignment.
Totally. It ensures everyone understands how their specific piece of work contributes to the bigger picture. It constantly reinforces that link between daily tasks and the evidence-backed strategy.
That sounds really powerful for keeping teams motivated and focused.
It really can be. And, for anyone listening who wants to see more real-world examples, the framework often points back to Itamar Gilead's book, Evidence Guided. Apparently, it's full of stories of companies using GIST effectively.
Good resource.
Yeah.
Okay, so just to quickly recap the whole thing, the GIST framework gives us this clear, structured four-step approach.
Right.
First, define your goal with a strong focus on outcomes, not just outputs.
Yep.
Second, generate ideas from everywhere and prioritize them using that ICE framework.
Right.
Impact, confidence, ease.
Mm-hmm.
Third, take small steps using those build, measure, learn loops to gather actual evidence and validate your assumptions, constantly updating your confidence.
Crucial step.
And finally, execute on tasks, but really focus only on those ideas that have shown promise and earned a high confidence score through the steps process.
That's it in a nutshell.
It really feels like it's all about shifting away from just relying on intuition or gut feeling.
Yeah, moving towards making informed decisions based on actual evidence you've gathered.
Which hopefully leads to fewer of those, disappointing feature launches we talked about at the start.
And a much higher chance of actually delivering real value to the people using your product or service.
Ultimately, it seems GIST fosters this culture of continuous learning and adaptation.
It really does. It kind of acknowledges up front that we don't always have all the answers right at the beginning.
Right.
Instead, it gives you a structured way to iteratively discover what works, what resonates with your users, and what actually drives you towards your goals, and just helps you make smarter decisions along the way.
So a final thought for you, the listener.
Mm.
As you're reflecting on your own projects, maybe your own work, how you make decisions,
Mm-hmm.
how might you start weaving in some of these GIST principles?
Yeah, like what if you started thinking more intentionally about the evidence that actually underpins your ideas?
And maybe consciously built in some of those crucial feedback loops, those steps to continuously learn and refine your approach before going all in.
It really highlights the power of having a structured, evidence-based way to explore possibilities, doesn't it? Instead of just hoping for the best.